Yo, everybody, we're back. Do you guys like sports? We do. Do you like overrated athletes or underrated athletes? Tradon likes both, right, Tradon?
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
Well, why? You're supposed to take it away.
You didn't say take it away.
To be fair, you didn't say take away. But
Okay.
yes, today we're going to talk, or I'm going to talk about overrated, underrated players. I asked the guys to kind of go through. I don't know if they went with recent. I kind of went with more recent, but just because I think everyone's kind of in the, in the know, in the now. I asked everyone to go with their respective sports and give us their picks for the most overrated and underrated players in those sports. So let's start with the NBA. Alex, since it's just about to start in a few weeks, ideally, give me your overrated player in the NBA right now.
Okay, yeah. First of all, I have no idea how they're going to start so soon. I feel like it just ended.
Yeah, me too.
It was like what, 3 weeks ago? I know it's probably like 2 months, but
You said this season ended a while ago though.
You said overrated first, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so overrated first. I have felt this for a long time, and this season proved it. It is Draymond Green, the most overrated player in basketball. He had 3 Hall of Fame bona fide superstars carrying him. Now, KD left, Clay got hurt, Steph got hurt. It was Draymond's time. He averaged 8 points and 3 rebounds. That's not a starter. That's a backup center. Draymond Green is ridiculous. He should never have been an all-star. He should never won Defensive Player of the Year. He was carried by those all-time greats playing on that Warriors team. There's no big four with Draymond. Fuck that shit. It is Steph, Clay, and KD. Draymond, you can go sit your ass down on the bench.
Wow.
Damn.
I actually really like Draymond Green personally.
Don't care.
So what do you have to say about that?
But I don't know his prior stats. I know that I know that he didn't have a great season this past year. I know that he's been kind of known for his defensive side. So I would hope that someone maybe can kind of like play devil's advocate here for me on my behalf.
He also kicks dudes in the balls. Like, that's rule number 1.
And he talks so much shit, but he cannot back it up.
He cannot
kicked
back it up.
Aquaman in the balls.
Yeah,
well, I can't apologize for him because you guys are just torching me and torching him. So
you wanted contention.
I did want contention, and now it's smacking me in the face. So I can get out of my hole that I've dug. What is your most underrated player in the NBA?
Yeah, so underrated is going to be CJ McCollum, the other star backcourt player for the Portland Trailblazers. I love Dame. I've shown that on this podcast before. Dame is probably my favorite non-Lakers player. If there was any way for the Lakers to get Dame, I would take him in a heartbeat. But McCollum just gets overshadowed because he's Dame Dollar. He shoots from the logo. He's legit. But CJ McCollum could run that team on his own if Dame ever got hurt. CJ, he's averaging 25 points. Also, he played this coronavirus season or whatever with like a partially broken back. He like had a fracture in his back. I can't even imagine like getting out of bed with that. But playing in the NBA, CJ McCollum is my most underrated. He's a superstar and no one talks about him.
There we go. I mean, looking at just his stats in the past couple of years, I mean, averaging over 20 points a game. Pretty solid, and he's only improved since he got in the league. So I think that he's just being overshadowed, and I agree. I think he's a great underrated player pick. Anybody concur or disagree with that?
I agree with both of those. Sorry, I agree with both of those picks.
What the
fantastic.
fuck was that?
I saw you nodding there, James.
has Rona.
What is your feeling on McCollum? Like, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, you hit the nail perfectly on the head. The fact of the matter is you got a superstar and you have a star. CJ McCollum in his own right could be a superstar if he was on his own. But, like, the fact of the matter is that the spotlight isn't on him all the time.
Right.
And so he's just there to be 1B when he could be a 1 somewhere else. And the thing about CJ is that he's quiet about it. He doesn't really talk. He talks shit on Twitter about gaming and whatnot. So that's pretty much it. Like, he doesn't talk shit about like destroying people. He
Meaningful
laughs at
things.
Lou Bev or Pat Bev and Lou Will. He laughs at those two all the time. But like, for the most part, he's pretty much quiet about it. Just goes in, does his job, and puts up numbers.
There's one thing I forgot to say about him too. He usually leads the league or is in the top in the league on like I think it's miles ran by the end of the season. So he's the one working his ass off on the court.
Yeah. I like that shit.
CJ.
I like that. Let's shift over to the MLB. Tyler, let's start with the overrated player in the MLB, in your opinion.
All right, so this was a pretty fun one to do research on. I think there's a lot of good candidates for both overrated and underrated. So for the overrated one, I'm going to go with the obvious one. It's Bryce Harper. Just no question. I didn't really want to go this one because I think it's kind of the easy pick. But honestly, when I was doing all my research, he's like the only player that's on every single list I looked up. And when you really think about it, he really is the most overrated player in baseball. And he's been overrated pretty much his whole career, with the exception of like one season. The main problem was he was so overhyped as a prospect. It was like the second coming of Jesus. Like he was supposed to be like baseball's Connor McDavid or LeBron James, like that good of a player. And I mean, he's had a decent career, but he hasn't been like the guy of baseball. He was drafted number 1 overall by the Nationals in 2010, made his big league debut in 2012. He's played 9 years in the league. He's won Rookie of the Year. He won MVP in 2015 and is a 6-time All-Star. So you kind of look at that, you're like, that's not that bad. But to be honest with you, he just isn't as good as advertised. And it's kind of unfair to him because I think he was unfairly advertised. So, and he's really only had one good season, as I mentioned, in 2015, when he won MVP. He hit 330, hit 42 home runs, 99 RBIs. Amazing season. Other than that, the only year he's hit above 275 was one time in 2017, but that was also the fewest games he played in his career in a full season. So you can kind of take that as you want. Also, his career in the postseason is pretty bad, hitting 211, only 5 home runs. His career WAR of 33.4 is only 46th of all the active players right now. So I don't know. I think Bryce Harper is a very good baseball player. Don't get me wrong, but I think just when you think overrated, and I think he's been overrated for most of his career. So I'm gonna have to go with Bryce Harper.
Alex, you kind of like tilted your head a little bit.
It's just such an easy response. Like it's such a.
As I said, it was easy.
Just I don't know.
That's
I mean,
the easy route.
Yeah, right. I mean, I didn't think about this that much, so I was focused on the basketball side. But off the top of my head, I would have picked Chris Bryant. Sort of the same thing, but he has the longevity. I mean, they might release him. That's how bad Chris Bryant is.
Oh, wow.
Like, the Cubs might be like, nah, we don't want. I think he had 5 RBIs this season.
Oof.
Or something like that.
Yeah, the reason why I kind of went Bryce Harper, which I think he's played a little bit longer, and it's just had like a longer career of being overrated. So I think that's kind of why I picked him. But I think Chris Bryant's also a very, very good second, right there.
Thanks, buddy.
Fair enough. What is your pick for the underrated player?
So underrated. Well, the way I kind of looked at this, I was looking at WAR. I think WAR is a really interesting stat. And I was looking at the top.
Would you explain again what WAR is?
Big WAR guy.
So WAR is wins above replacement. We mentioned this a few podcasts earlier, and it basically measures like how good of a player you are next to your like the player that would replace you essentially. So it's like how good you are above the average player. It's really complicated, to be honest with you. I've looked it up so many times and I couldn't tell you, but it's really complicated. But it's a pretty good stat to measure a person's value. Like it works pretty well. So I was looking at the top 50 active players and kind of going down the list. I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. And one guy popped up that was pretty high on the list, and I was like, shit, I didn't know he was this high. He has a career WAR of 36.6, which is 23rd on the active list. It's Andrelton Simmons. You're welcome, Angels fans.
Hey, I told you.
He's not going to be Angels fan for that much longer. Or he's gone, dude.
Yeah.
He's not going to play there again.
I think he retired.
But here's my
he did not retire.
Didn't retire.
Yeah.
What are you talking
He's
about?
about to.
All right, but here's my case for Simmons. He's mostly known for his defense. I think there's no question he's probably one of the best, if not the best defensive player in baseball, which I think defense overall as a skill in baseball is underrated. I think it's super, super important. I don't think enough people pay attention to it. Yeah, they have those top 10s on SportsCenter, but like overall, like as defense, no one talks about like that being as such a big deal, but it really is a really important skill. He's won so many Gold Gloves and Defensive Player of the Year. It's crazy. He's super reliable, super consistent. With the bat, he doesn't have a ton of power. He has a 269 career batting average, which is pretty solid. Like that's a pretty solid career average.
Thank you, James.
So he and Kevin Kiermaier, fun fact, are the only active players in the top 50 in WAR who have never made an All-Star team.
Wow.
So Angelo Simmons, 23rd active WAR, 0 All-Star appearances. Bryce Harper is, what did I say earlier? He is
Not a big WAR guy.
46. He is 46 active, has made 6 All-Star games. So I think that right there, in terms of value and how good, that's most overrated and most underrated right there.
Hey, I like that. And, guy gets 4 Golden Gloves. His best is finished 8th in the MVP race, and that's still pretty good for a type of player that you're talking.
He's also finished the top 10 in WAR for a season 3 times in his career.
He's also got an all-time. His nickname's Simba. That's an all-time nickname.
Yeah, that's a great nickname.
That's an all-time nickname.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like that was a great pick. Not hearing any fighting over that one. But let's move it over to the NFL. So James, there's a lot of them, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Let's
I have 2
do overrated.
Okay, overrated. I got 2. Like I said, first one is OBJ.
Oh,
This dude, he signed a 5-year, $95 million contract when he was with the Giants and hasn't done much with it since then. Aside from that one-handed catch, he hasn't really produced. He's supposed to be like this dude that just transformed the Browns from a shit team to a better team, and he hasn't done that. The wins haven't come. He was supposed to be the guy that made Baker Mayfield better, or was like supposed to help Baker Mayfield adjust the NFL. That hasn't happened either.
Aren't they 8-3 though? The Browns.
Yeah, OBJ's been injured.
Yeah,
he tore his ACL. What are you talking about? He's had 3 touchdowns this year before he got hurt. He hasn't done anything. He's only had 6. The most he's had since 2016 is 6 touchdowns. At the beginning of his career, nobody really knew much about him. He had like 10 touchdowns, 13, and then 10 again. Since then, he hasn't had more than 6. And this dude is getting paid top dollar. And to be honest, I don't know if he's worth the problems that come with him fighting over like practice things.
Being shit on,
Yeah. Yep, exactly. Being a dog, getting shit on. If that's your fetish, just don't tell people. That's weird. My second overrated player is Melvin Gordon from the Broncos. He sat out a year because he thought he was good. The fact of the matter is, he wasn't. Like Austin Eckler came in there and tore it up because he was better than Melvin Gordon for a lot less pay. At the end of the day, Melvin Gordon ended up getting a 2-year, $16 million contract and hasn't produced this year for the Broncos. The Broncos are a pretty bad team. This last game, they didn't have a quarterback, and they're expected to run the ball a lot more, and Melvin Gordon had like 30 yards. Like Philip Lindsay was an undrafted player, and I think it was a bad move for the Broncos to sign Melvin Gordon because Philip Lindsay is a good player, and having Melvin Gordon is stunting his growth overall. It's all about name value and hype for him. Melvin Gordon is averaging less than 4 yards per carry in 4 of his 6 years in the league. He doesn't produce all that much. It's just his name. And those are my 2 overrated players.
Do you think Odell could perform well if he actually had a relatively competent quarterback or an elite quarterback even?
I think anybody could perform well. Look at Alan Lazard. Like he's doing really well, and he has Aaron Rodgers. But the fact that he's getting paid as much as he is to not produce is the thing that's making him overrated for me.
That's fair. That's a huge part of it. I would say those are 2 great picks. What about your underrated pick?
Okay, so I got 2 of those as well.
What?
Sticking with the Browns here, my first one is Nick Chubb.
Oh,
he's quietly one of the best rushers in the league, and he's still on a rookie contract overall. When you think of the Browns, who do you think of? You think of Baker Mayfield and OBJ. You don't ever think about Nick Chubb. And he's also being overshadowed by Kareem Hunt, and it's crazy. Nick Chubb does his job day in and day out, and you don't hear about him at all because he's not on social. He's on social media, but he doesn't tweet or do anything on Instagram. He helps out his community, but you don't hear about it. Like this dude just Goes in, does his job, doesn't talk. Did you guys watch the Hard Knocks on the Browns a couple years ago?
Yeah, don't stretch. It hurts you. Remember that one coach?
Yeah, that guy.
line coach.
But Nick Chubb made one appearance in that entire Hard Knocks thing, and it was at the very beginning when he was at the airport. And some guy asked him what he did. He's like, I play football. And the guy asked him, like, oh, for which college? And he's like, oh, the Browns. And that was it. Very low key about it. And that was it. He goes in, does his job. Stats-wise, this guy breaks tackles like no other and averages 5 yards a carry. For a power back, that's insane. That's my first overrated pick. And my second is Minkah Fitzpatrick for the Steelers. He was acquired from the Dolphins and traded to the Steelers midway last season, and he completely changed that defense overall. He overhauled that defense, making him like middle-of-the-pack defense, one of the best defenses in the league. He has insane ball hawking skills. He's all over the place. He has so many interceptions. People typically think of TJ Watt and his sacks as part of the reason why the defense is so good, but Eric is going to like this. He's one of the few safeties in the league that is pretty much the QB of that defense, and he allows TJ Watt and that defense to get sacks because he performs so well in the secondary.
And they're undefeated, so, you know.
And they're undefeated, yeah. Without Minkah Fitzpatrick, that defense wouldn't be the same.
So, I mean, Nick Chubb is like my boy. I mean, I love the guy. Almost breached his 1,500 yards last year. I mean, to me, when you ask that question, who do I think of the Brown, or who do I think of when you say the Browns? For me, it's Nick Chubb, and that's maybe because I own him in fantasy. Is he a top 10?
Yes, but people don't think about that because he's underrated.
Right. I will say I am still a little pissed off that he very smartly did not take the touchdown like 2 weeks ago, and like he could have just. He's
all about his team, man. He's all about
his team, and I appreciate that side of it. But as a fantasy owner, I'm still a little salty. but those are great picks. Nick Chubb is like, I love that guy. And again, you never hear from him, and except for the good things, which is important. Shifting over to the PGA, we're gonna go to golf. Eric, who is your most overrated pick in the golf world?
Most overrated golfer, I would say Jordan Spieth. I feel bad shitting on this dude, though. He's got the biggest yips of all time. He can't putt for dick anymore. Apparently, he's relearning his entire swing, which explains why he's been playing like dick in basically every golf tournament the last 4 years. He has won a Masters, but since then, it's just all gone downhill. Literally, he almost won 2 Masters in a row, and on the 17 and 18 holes, he just somehow blew it, had to surrender up the green jacket. One other golf guy I would say overrated. This is me just more like not liking him. It's Brooks Koepka. I mean, he's pretty good. He's won like 4 majors, and he won 3 of them last year. He also had knee surgery this year, so you can't really shit on him and say he's overrated because he was hurt. But the guy just kind of seems like a dick, and he was shit-talking DeChambeau this year, you know. I always got to mention this guy when I talk golf, and, you know, after he shit-talked him, he proceeded to win his first major. So those are my 2 overrated golfers.
I'd say Spieth for sure. I would say Spieth is a great pick. He just – it seems like every tournament you can expect, okay, which 2 holes are you going to blow up, you know? Just is it going to be early, late, mid? You know, it happens every time. So that's not surprising. So what about your underrated golfers? Because it seems like there's a lot.
Yeah, there's a ton. I just picked one main guy, Tony Finau. He's just never put it all together to win a major. I hope he does. Here's a hot take. His scoring average is 69. You know, I had to throw that in there. This dude, he's 6'4", 200 pounds. He's a football-sized boy. Got a nice, powerful swing. I was looking up his stats earlier. He's only won 1 tournament ever. That's pretty fucking insane. 6 second-place finishes. I think a few of those were in major tournaments, and he was leading on that Sunday to start. 3 third-place finishes and 40 top 10 finishes. That's just – it's crazy. But, you know, he's still winning fucking 6 figures of money every time he does that, but still.
I agree. I think he just needs to put something together, and then he's going to start winning. But that stat alone, the top 10 finishes, you don't even see, last winners of Master or, of a Masters in the next tournament making it the top 10, like as consistently as he is. So he's just so close. And if he can maintain that top 10, I mean, he could be one of the greats, I think. But those are great picks. I'm going to move on to the NHL. Please jump down my throat, guys, if you disagree. My overrated player is PK Subban. He's the third highest paid defenseman in the league and is outplayed by damn near every single other top D in the league, ranking 127th in point per game last year. He recorded a dismal -21 on the season and produced a below 50% Corsi rating, suggesting he didn't even help defensively. We've seen him produce almost 60 points in Nashville in 2018 before dropping nearly half of that the next year, and then following it up with an even worse performance this past year. He ranked 29th and he ranks 29th in time on ice, suggesting he's being played as a 1/2 defenseman, and probably taking up special teams as well. But I often compare him to Shea Weber because that was the marquee trade back in 2018 or back in 2016. And, Shea Weber beat him in every single metric, every single one. And I've kind of flip-flopped on who won that trade, in the past 4 years. But now I think that, Shea Weber has kind of regained himself, and he's not, and PK has actually gone the other way. And when you look at a $9 million contract that he has for 2 more years, he should be playing like a top 10 consistently, and he's barely cracking the top 100.
He's on a terrible team, though.
Regardless, I mean, you could say the same about, quite a few defensemen. Aaron Ekblad. You could say that about. I would have said like Zach Werenski, but the Columbus Blue Jackets are actually a lot better than they used to be. But he's still, even before they became good, they were still solid.
Yeah, but PK, like before he was on the Devils, he's just been a solid player. He fucking was a big reason the Preds got to the Cup that year. He's electric. He's kind of like a Westbrook-ish, I feel like.
I would take every single defenseman in the top 4 in Nashville now over him any day of the week. Roman Josi won the Norris because he's way better. He's also, he's just fantastic. I will say this: PK Subban's amazing off the ice. What he does for social justice and everything is so amazing. I'm not trying to knock him on that. I'm just trying to knock him on the on ice. He has gone completely the wrong
direction. He's going to do great this year.
I think that's a hot take. I hope you're right, though. I want to see a resurgence, but he's just not doing it for me right now.
Especially what do you think about John Gibson? About overrated?
He's always hurt. But you don't hear as much from him. You don't hear much about him, though. I mean,
because the Ducks suck.
Oh, he does suck, but I don't know if he's necessarily overrated. I mean, you could also say the same about Martin Jones. I don't think he's a number 1 goalie, but for some reason the Sharks do. But I wanted to pick someone who was, he's paid a lot and he should be doing a lot better than he is. And that's kind of what kind of brought me into that. There's just so many overrated players, but he's definitely the biggest in my opinion. The underrated player that I pick is Jonathan Huberdeau from the Florida Panthers. Exactly.
Yeah, he's fucking
$5.9 million a year through 2023 now, and he's the second of the underrated stars in the Panthers organization. I didn't want to give Barkov the time of day because everyone touts that he's an underrated player, which at this point he's like not underrated because of that. Though you can blame the market they play in. They just don't get the same reception as the Rangers or Blackhawks or whatever. Huberdeau ranked 10th in point production this past season and 17th in points per game, which is well above 1.0 in the Corsi. He's over 50% in the Corsi, excuse me. And he's considered one of the lowest played players in the top 20. Suggesting, looking at the Corsi, it suggests that he doesn't forget the defensive side of the puck. He's putting up 92 points, in a season last year. He's a perennial 20 goal scorer when he plays a full season. His main issue is who he plays for. I mean, he plays for Toronto, he plays for Rangers, he plays for Pittsburgh, or even the Blackhawks. With these same numbers, he's getting talked about on every single news outlet everywhere. You guys would know who he is. And I think the Panthers have a gem in this guy, along with Barkov, and he'll be a key player to build around if they can get a goaltender. he's 26, so he's just kind of breaching his prime here, and I expect him to do great things in the next couple of years.
You know who's overrated?
Doesn't even what?
You know who's overrated is John Tavares on the Leafs.
I would 100% agree.
Was the captain of the Islanders. Fucking overrated. Can't even score empty net goals when it matters.
Does anybody have an underrated hockey player that they have in mind?
Yeah, the entire New York Islanders team.
I would agree.
Underrated.
I actually was going to throw in for you three was Iafallo. I really like Iafallo's play. I think you got some. I think you got
Iafallo.
I think you got someone big on your squad there, and I'm going to look forward to him playing, and the Kings finally building, truly building around him, because I think he's going to be huge. James, I don't really have an underrated player except maybe Kasha to an extent, but yeah.
Dude, the way he spells his name is super weird, bro.
It is.
Case. His name is Case. That was a Kasha. And Andrej Kasha now, bro.
That is my, that is my segment. It's always fun to talk about underrated, overrated players, but yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah, we'll see about PK Subban trade, and I think he's going to do great this year.